There is a moment in every life when you decide to rise, to stand taller than your fear, to speak louder than your doubt, to chase the vision that sets your soul on fire. This is that moment. And here, we walk it together with stories that awaken, voices that inspire, and truths that set you free. This is Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where hope has a voice, and that voice is yours. I gotta tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so happy to be here today. We've got a great guest for you today that he has done a lot. He's a full bird colonel in the reserve and he is a medical wizard and has been doing emergency medicine for a long period of time. He also has a brand new book. I don't know if it's exactly brand new, but it is worth talking about. The name of the book is The Weight Behind the Spear, and his name is Dr. Josh McConkey. And young man, how are you doing today?
Thank you very much. I appreciate the warm introduction. You got a great show.
Well, thank you very much. We worked very hard, and you are the type of guest that we really love to have on the show because you not only have been a physician and in the military. By the way, thank you for your service, and you've done all of that, but you're also dedicated to the betterment of America, our families working together because. And it's in your website. And by the way, if you want to go to his website, you can. It is weightbehindthespear.com. And I highly recommend that you do that. And also get the book, which is Be the Weight Behind the Spear. And first of all, I got to ask you, how'd you come up with the name?
So for me, it's my personal leadership ethos. As a military commander, community leader, I've been in the military for 23 years now. It's crazy. And, I've been very fortunate to work with some special operations, and you see the tip of the spear and what it takes to be the tip of the spear. And what you very quickly realize is, like, number one, I can't do those things. All right. They're just amazing individuals. I save lives. I don't take them. But, I've worked with special operations like combat search and rescue, and they have just a tremendous weight behind their spear. It's their family and teachers and coaches and volunteers. That's what makes them so special. That's what sets this country apart. It's the weight behind the spear, because we can't all be the tip of the spear, but we can all be the weight behind that spear. And so that's my personal ethos. And it's a call to action for Americans to get out there and engage their communities and do great things and coach and teach and volunteer. That's what makes America special, and we need more of that.
It's amazing to me that a lot of us sit here and go, wow, somebody else will do that. Somebody will take care of that. And I'm just going to sit here. That's not the way it works.
It has to be you. When you look in the mirror every day, I promise you, it can't be anyone else but you. It has to be you. Like, the government's not going to save us. Your neighbor's not going to save us. The more you get involved, the more your neighbors and friends and family get involved. So it starts with you.
And you also started a nonprofit organization to help with. Now, you are in North Carolina, is that right?
Correct.
And they had a hurricane a year ago, and it was not good. And tell us about that and about your work with the nonprofit that you've created.
Yeah, just seeing the horrific destruction in September of 2024. So Hurricane Helene, just biblical level flooding and destruction. And it was just such a beautiful area in the mountains. If anyone had been out to Asheville or Boone, and just seeing so many people struggling, the book was out, and I talk about community engagement. So I started a nonprofit organization, the Weight Behind the Spear Foundation. We raised money for Western North Carolina, partnered with some other organizations in the region, Samaritan's Purse, with Edward Graham, and they do a lot of great work out there. And it's been a tremendous amount of work, but it's been a great reward as well. And for people that are still out there, we have a lot to do in Western North Carolina. Certainly open for business. Come out into tourism, but you can go to weightbehindthespear.com/foundation. It's a capital F, foundation. You can learn more about that.
And I got to tell you, you grew up in the great state of Washington, and you were born in Renton, Washington, which is just right down the street from me, basically. And but you've been in the military. What was your life like before you went into the military, and what was your motivating factor to do that?
Yeah, so born in Renton. My family is still out there in Renton, Maple Valley. Mom and grandma, everybody. And then my dad was a railroader, so moved out to Western Nebraska. So spent a lot of time in Western Nebraska as well. And then joining the military, just tremendous opportunities to get out there and see the world. I grew up I graduated high school, a very rural, small town, and just I joined, had an ROTC scholarship initially, but the school that I went to was Shadron State College. Was too small and did not have an ROTC program. So in medical school, I took a direct commission. And the recruiting hook was you get to do all these medical missions in Central America, Guatemala, Belize. And then that was 2000. And then September of 2001, 9/11 hit. And so we had been at war the majority of my career. And so that took me I got to Europe and Okinawa, Guam, some Pacific, and then of course the combat deployment to Iraq. So it's been a very busy career. I spent some time in Rwanda as well with the Sikh study. I've got to see some really cool things.
You know what's interesting? 9/11 happened in 2001, and 30% of the country or the kids in this country weren't even alive when that happened. So they don't have any. It's hard for them to understand the impact that particular day had on those of us that were there able to watch it. Talk a little bit about that, because that changed everything in our country.
It changed everything. And, my children were born in 2011 and 2012. I got a set of twins that were born in 2012. So this September 11th, I gave two speeches, one in my hometown in Apex, North Carolina, one out in Craven County as well. And about a week before that, as I'm writing the speech, they had a series on Netflix, and it was basically the manhunt for bin Laden. And I sat down with my kids and we watched that. The first episode is all about 9/11. It's a whole hour long with the pictures and the video and the interviews. And, watched that, got very choked up at times and talking with my kids. And they just saw the emotional impact that had. And I think it was the first time they realized how important that day was, how everything changed, national security, all those people killed, Flight 93, the Twin Towers, just all of that. They watched all of that for the very first time. I mean, they had read about it a few times here and there, just in some history books, but that's the first time where they really got to almost feel like they lived that. And that was it was a pretty emotional event.
It was, one of the things that I reminded me about it the most was when you walked outside that day, because they grounded every flight in the country at one point. And I remember walking outside and it was eerily quiet because there were no airplanes, there was no anything, and everybody was very hunkered down and very quiet about it, because it was one of those days that we it's one of those days that if you were alive then, you remember. Like in my life, I remember when John Kennedy was assassinated. That was my early days. And then Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King and the moon landing and all of those things. But that is one of those days that you will remember forever exactly where you were.
Yeah, I was on my way to work. I was doing a family practice rotation. I was a medical student and was driving into the office. And it was actually in my hometown with one of the family practice docs. And I just heard something on the radio. It didn't make any sense. How does a plane? I'm a flight surgeon, right? I'm like, the planes don't just fly into buildings. Like, that's crazy. What is he talking about? I turned around. I went back to my parents' house, turned on the TV, and then moments after that, watched the second plane fly right into the other tower. And then clearly knew this is intentional. This is a terrorist attack. We're at war, and the world completely changed.
And everything about what we know today was based upon that day, and what happened after that with going into Afghanistan and then Iraq and all of those things. It was really horrific. And I think, and Josh, Dr. Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it changed everything about our country at that particular moment in time. We weren't as, and I don't know if we were before this, but it seemed to me like we were nicer to each other and less impactful of the other, and different religions and all that kind of stuff before that. Anyway, what's your memory of those days?
Of September 11th, or just the days after?
The days after, and how it changed everything.
So everyone was the rise in patriotism. And, they just, the terrorists want to instill fear and just kind of destroy our will. And all they did was just awaken that beast. It's the same thing the Japanese did on December 11th, 1941. There's just those defining moments for generations where you just rekindle what it means to be an American. And it brought everybody together. I'll never forget Pat Tillman, NFL safety,
Yeah.
the Arizona Cardinals. And he walked into a recruiting office. He's making millions of dollars a year. He's like, I'm gonna join the Army. That was the level of patriotism where everyone felt they needed to do their part. And boy, I was running on a treadmill in Akron, Ohio, after a residency shift when they announced that he had passed away in Afghanistan. That was so sad to see that. But just this country was brought together, and sometimes it just takes those traumatic events to just bring us all together. I hope it doesn't take an event like that right now. It feels like things are extremely divided. It's the most politically and generationally divided I've ever seen the country. I'm 48 years old, so I hope it doesn't take an event like that. But we got to find a way.
I was asked one recently if today compares to 1968, because sadly I was alive in 1968, and I remember that was the year that Martin Luther King was killed, and Bobby Kennedy, and Kent State, and all of that.
Vietnam War, and
yep, the war protests and all of that. That had nothing compared to what's going on today. In my opinion, it's we need to work together to get together and to figure out how we can get along better, and I know that is a lot of the work that you're doing, is to try and help us get together and to bring our families together. Even Thanksgiving now is difficult when when you have different viewpoints at the Thanksgiving dinner table, and arguments break out, and people aren't interested in being together anymore and stuff. We've got to fix it, and I know you're working to do that. Tell us some of the things that. And by the way, you've also written about being a leader and proper leadership and great leadership. I'm going to play a little thing here in a minute about leadership, but tell us what motivated you to get started doing this and writing the book, Be the Weight Behind the Spear, and the nonprofit and all the things that you're doing.
So, first off, I think we can all agree. We try to find something in common. We all want our children to be successful, right? We want our children to get a great education, be safe. We need to teach them some leadership skills, because this is a generation that, unfortunately, there were obviously different decisions made and some policy failures, but, you shut out an entire generation out of school, out of churches, out of their communities. And as a result, there's a large mental health crisis. And that's what I see as an emergency doctor. So I see the anxiety, the depression, the suicide in this generation. I mean, I hardly see a child coming in that isn't on some type of mental health medications. It's a little bit skewed because everyone coming to see me is having an emergency or a mental health emergency, right? I mean, nobody comes in just to say, hi, I'm having an awesome day today. They come into the emergency room because there's a problem. But the rise, and then on the other side of that, on the military side, as a military commander, I see young Americans like 18 to 25 years old, and you just see the lack of resiliency skills and basic communication. And this is a generation that just has never known a world without social media. And so there's some of those issues. It's very complicated, but just those decisions that were made did not help. And so this book is that prescription to address the issues. It doesn't do any good to pass any blame. Own the problem. What are we going to do about it? And so I think everyone can agree that we need to teach this generation about leadership and accountability and just those basic communication skills so that they can be successful, because that is our future. They are the future leaders of this country. And if they are not successful, we are all in for a lot of trouble.
It seems to me like this generation lacks, we've got what they call social media, but what is social media really isn't social. It's people creating stuff that may or may not be true, but we're not getting together. We're not. I don't know. When I was a kid, I used to get on my bike and with my friends, and we'd go bike riding all over the place and pick up baseball games and just hang out and do stuff. I don't see any of that nowadays. And we really need to get back to that basic philosophy, I think.
Yeah, and that's the whole point of the book, is it get out there face to face. Go coach a little league or soccer, or volunteer in your church or school, or go to the animal shelter, right? Those animals can be emotional support animals for somebody. Everybody has a certain set of gifts, and everyone's gifts may be different, but your community needs you. It's got to be face to face, not TikTok and Facebook and YouTube. It has to be face to face. That's how we're going to save this generation. So getting involved in your community in whatever capacity that you're able, get out there. That's what's going to save these kids.
It's amazing to me because you're in the military and you get to see a lot of 18 plus kids, and they're different now than they used to be, aren't they? When we come back from this break, I want to talk about that and how can we help them help themselves so that they can live the life, because you're right. They are our future. I'm not going to be around forever, and I hope you are, because you're doing some really good things, just doing some really good things. But we're talking with Dr. Josh McConkey, and he's got the book out. By the way, you've also been interviewed, and you've met some extraordinary people in your life. And I want to talk about all of that because you really are a cool dude out there, I got to tell you.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back. Here are some points to ponder from Positive Talk Radio. Some say leadership is about getting the work done, about pushing forward, no matter the cost. But what's the cost of a team with no purpose? What if a single act of support, a single moment of genuine grit could change everything? What if leadership was a catalyst? Because true leadership isn't about being in control. It's about empowering others to find their purpose. It's about leading with passion and igniting the fire in everyone around you, creating a culture of teamwork and common purpose. A true leader finds this culture by enthusiastic purpose and team development, making each team member feel empowered to create, improve, and execute their tasks with genuine passion and a strong belief in the company's mission and focus. In other words, lead with purpose. Welcome back to Positive Talk. My name is Kevin McDonald, but I think you knew that. And Dr. Josh McConkey is with us. And I played that in your honor because I think that I hope that resonated with you.
That's great.
Because leadership is an important aspect for all of us to get to help the young ones that are just now becoming adults. And in the military, I imagine it's kind of tough because they've changed over time, haven't they?
They have. There's clearly a generational gap, and that's just a challenge that has to be overcome. So failure is not an option. But I did notice early in my command tour, they didn't really respond to challenges like you would expect them to, or you would need them to. So the resiliency skills, and I've kind of attributed a lot of that to kind of growing up in this social media world, coupled with what I call lawnmower parenting. And the parents just mow down every obstacle in the child's path so they just never have to encounter any obstacles or make decisions or even make mistakes. That's not really good. That's not a good way to learn, and that doesn't build resiliency skills. So I just found them just quitting at any task or obstacle that you would put in front of them. And so that challenge is trying to find their perception is reality. So whether we agree with the way they're responding or thinking about the world, it doesn't really matter. You got to find a way around that. And so I was very successful in trying to bring them back into the fold, holding them accountable, but giving them ownership and buy-in to the organization, our squadron. And then once they really get that buy-in and feel what it's like to be a part of a team and something bigger than yourself, they would flourish, and you see some of the resiliency skills, coming back. It's definitely a challenge. It's been a really big challenge. It's probably across the entire country, not just our military.
No, it's definitely everywhere, because maybe it's because life has been so easy. I remember I was a little league baseball coach, and I said, well, we need to have an MVP, and we need to have a Mr. Hustle kind of award and stuff. And the parents said, oh no, we need to give every kid an award, a participation award. And I said, but that doesn't give them anything to strive for. I mean, my children were in sports, and they have boxes of trophies, and none of them were great at what they did, and they did the best they could, but the trophies were participation awards. So it takes the value, I think, out of it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's proven to not be successful. So in real life, everyone is not a winner. There are winners and there are losers, and that's fact. And it doesn't have to be a bad thing or a negative thing. You learn from losses. So when you frame that with your children, it's like, hey, listen, this is what we strive for. We want to have fun, especially the young ages, just have fun. I mean, nobody cares if you win or lose. But as you get older, and in real life, there are winners and losers. So if you're losing, what are you learning from it? How are you making yourself better? How are you responding to that? It's not like, oh gosh, I'm a loser. When they had taken away the presidential fitness program, I guess the
Oh
Obama
yeah.
administration had taken that away because they only celebrate the top 15%. And so what about the other 85%? I'm like, listen, that is the complete wrong way to frame that. All right. So we still celebrate greatness. We still celebrate those 15%, but you're not always competing against other people. You're competing against yourself. So for the other 85% of the kids, did you get better than last year? Or did you have more fun at this event? Did you do more push-ups? Did you shave off a second from that shuttle run? Those types of things. Make it a competition with themselves. And then what can they do to get better, make themselves sharper? Like, you learn from losing. And that's what people completely forgot about and raised an entire generation. And that's why they have no resiliency skills and they just quit. So, we're finding a way around that, but it's been extremely challenging. And that's the future of our country.
I wish I hadn't said that. That's kind of scary. And by the way, we have MS Lakey. I can't pronounce that. So, and they're listening and just saying hello. And so I appreciate them being here. But you're right. It's the resiliency of the kids. It's easy to quit these days because there's no impact. There doesn't seem to be a negative impact. Johnny, if you don't want to play, that's okay, and stuff. And there has to be an impact. And kids, and do you think it's more that the family unit is not what it once was?
There's been changes there, and there's lots of different ways. Like, families come in all shapes and sizes. But the very basics are still there. So you need to find that time to just sit down at the dinner table. Everybody together, sit down, put the phones away, no social media. I know everyone is pulled in 100 different directions, but just sit down with your kids and just ask them the simple things. Hey, what went well today? What didn't go well today? Have you made some different decisions that would have changed the outcome of the day? And then they learn that, like, home is that safe place, and you can talk about things and discuss things and talk about what good and what didn't go good. And that gives them confidence to then kind of go out and explore and push the envelope a little bit, make some mistakes safely. All right. There's some mistakes that you can't undo. And so as a parent, that's your job to teach your kid about those things. But, it's not, we're not doomed. we just have a lot of work to do, and it's going to take everybody, and that's why everyone needs to get involved.
And everybody needs to get involved together, and rather than separation of with a bunch of hate, division, and fear, which seems to be going from the top down. Seems to be we're not working together for the betterment of everyone. We're looking at the folks that we happen to be in line with, whatever that is, and that doesn't make sense for us long term to be able to do that. I was at a store the other day, and it was warm outside, and there was a mom and two kids, and they each had ice cream, and they were sitting there outside, and it was I thought they're preteen kids, and I thought this is a perfect time for her to talk to them about what's going on in their life and how things are going, and to solve any problems and stuff. But nope, they were all sitting there on their phones. They didn't say a word to each other while they were doing that. They were just looking down at their phone and scrolling through it rather than having communication with each other. And I think you remember the days before cell phones the way that they are today, and it's changed everything. Because now we don't have to talk to anybody. We can just look at our phone and I guess talk to those people. It's like my son, who's when he was a little younger, he refused to even talk to anybody on the phone. Why should I talk to him? I can just text him.
Yeah. They'll text each other right next to each other. You see kids all the time. Like I go to schools, I talk. They're sitting right next to each other, and they are texting. Like he. I mean, they're right next to one another. They're texting each other. Like I'm right here. Like just it's interesting.
Let's have a conversation, and it is frightening because we have our country is based upon a set of ideals and thoughts that some of us aren't even aware of, because we haven't, and in school they're not learning about history or civics and a lot of these things that are really foundational to everything that we do and who we are as a people. And I really hope that we can get back to that. Is that something that you're advocating for with the nonprofit?
Every day, just getting engaged in your community, volunteering, raising money for Western North Carolina for, just causes other than yourself. Just that community engagement right there is the best place to start. And like I said, everyone's got different gifts. So maybe you just love animals or coaching, or you want to volunteer in your church or school. There's so many different organizations, tons of organizations out there. And then that's really one of our big roles, is just getting people to engage and realize that, get away from the phone and just be part of their community.
We don't even know, in many cases, our next door neighbors. Because, I lived in a cul-de-sac for, 20 years, and everybody would drive in. They had an automatic garage door opener, and the door would go up. They'd drive in, the door would go down. You'd never see them again until the next time. I had neighbors that I didn't even know their names, because the sense of community was lost until one day, one of our neighbors said, "Let's have a barbecue." And he sent a little note to all to 12 houses and said, "Why don't you meet us out here?" And he set up tables in the middle of the cul-de-sac. And that was the first time that people got to know each other. It takes somebody to do that. Because if he didn't do that, that wouldn't have gotten done. And that's what your book is about. And that's why I'm so proud to be talking to you today. How long did it take you to write the book?
It was a good year and a half. Trying to find the time. I'm an emergency doctor, military commander, and 3 kids, wife and 3 kids. So it's busy, but I did find when I was traveling away for work, that was where I had the time. I had to just kind of completely isolate myself. And it took a year and a half.
And the motivation for the book, do you remember a specific moment that there was when you said, I need to write a book about this?
Well, you couple it with my experiences in Iraq. And so I carried body bags, and I saw men and women pay that ultimate sacrifice. And that's one of the things I think about every single day when I wake up. I think about those individuals and what am I doing to justify their sacrifice? Am I doing something to make this world a better place? And when you that's my mindset every day when I wake up. And so when I go to work and I see these things, that I'm as a military commander, I'm dealing with these things, like, man, like I think we're heading in the wrong direction as a society here. And taking that ownership, like who's going to do it? It has to be you. So I wrote a book and I put it out there, and it's won a bunch of awards, got a Pulitzer Prize nomination. It's just nice to know that people care. But that just embodies what the book is all about. You be the weight behind the spear for someone or something that matters, and just get out there in your community. Just go do it. Like, we need you.
We do. We need coaches. We need leaders of all kinds. I was a Cub Scout leader for a number of years, and we ended up having 75, 80 kids because we had a really good time putting the things together. But had I not done that, somebody else might have. I don't know. But I was actually traveling at the time, and my wife calls me and says, I went to a meeting. There were 3 returning kids in this Cub Scout troop, and they were looking for volunteers. So I volunteered you to be the, what's it called? It's called a Cub Master, I think. And I said,
voluntold.
I said, you volunteered me. I was in Arkansas at the time. I said, you volunteered me to be the Cub Master? And she said, yeah, what is that? And I said, he's the one in charge of everybody. And but I decided that I was going to do it. I'd been a Cub Scout before. We grew that from 3 kids to when I left to become the president of the parent-teacher group, we had 75 kids.
Wow, that's great.
Because they were all looking for something to be together, to work together. And then the kids told each other, yeah, it's great. You should come do that and stuff. So it was, but that's what we should all be doing. When we come back from this break, I'm going to ask Dr. Josh why we're not, and why we are so separate, and why we don't look at each other like fellow Americans. And sometimes we look at each other out of the side of our eyes, if you know what I mean. So we'll be right back right after this station break.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
Are you looking for your daily dose of inspiration? Stay connected to all your favorite shows, music, and news with the Brushwood Media Network app. From Positive Talk Radio to Greatest Vibes Unplugged and so many more uplifting voices around the world, everything you need is right in one place. It's easy to use, too. Always available and designed to keep you inspired 24 hours a day. Go to brushwoodmedianetwork.com and download the app, and you will always have Brushwood Media available on your smartphone. Download it now and make inspiration and music and conversation part of your everyday. And welcome back to Positive Talk. My name is Kevin McDonald, and we've got a great guest for you today. He's a gentleman of note. He's been interviewed by all kinds of interesting people. He even got to meet Dan Wilson in 1999, who's now currently the at least for today, the manager of the Mariners, who just got lost. Anyway, that's a sad topic, but. But Dr. Josh, he's written the book, Be the Weight Behind the Spear, because if we don't act on things individually and collectively, nothing is ever going to get done, and we can't depend on somebody else to do it for us. Would that be true, sir?
Yes, that's just taking the ownership of the issue. So if you don't take ownership of a problem, you're not going to fix it. So it has to be you. And that's what I loved about special operations is everything is your problem. Like, no one passes the buck. Everyone individually owns that problem. And then together you sort it out, but nobody passes the buck. And we need more of that.
I got to tell you, my son wanted to go into the Air Force because he wanted to be a seer. Yeah, which is Special Forces. And it is, if you don't know what a seer is, those are the guys who train pilots on how to survive behind enemy lines. And so it's a Special Forces program. And they they mean it. Special Forces, they don't get around. They really mean it. Because like he was up for like 3 days and trying to get stuff done. And finally they came to him and said, we don't think you're cut out for this. You don't seem to be as engaged as you might otherwise be, and stuff. So it's a hard thing, and thank goodness for those people, because people like you were mentioning, Team 6 that went into Pakistan and took down Osama bin Laden. Those people are extremely dedicated, extremely talented. How hard is it to find people like that these days?
So if you just look at the numbers on that, and I put that in the book, I'm kind of a math nerd, but so you take 350 people in the United States, 350 million people, and there were 79 people on that team that took out bin Laden. So we had some SEAL team, some other special operation commandos, and there was one dog named Cairo. All right. And that 79 out of 350 million is like 0.00002%. So that's just the elite of the elite of the elite. And then what people don't realize is those individuals, like, to even keep yourself at that type of mental alertness and at that level of readiness, it's not sustainable for long periods of time. So they rotate through a few months at a time or 6 months. And so those SEAL Team 6 and these really specialized teams, they rotate people in and out because it's not compatible with like maintaining anything else in your life. I mean, the divorce rates are through the roof, but they're very special individuals with a set of skills that America needs. And they are far cooler than anything you see in the movies. Believe me.
I worked with a guy who trained them in some hand-to-hand combat, and what he told me, it was so funny because he said, they don't allow things like box cutters and stuff on airplanes. A true professional doesn't need anything more than a pen to take it, because they are so talented and they're so dedicated, and they work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They can be called up in a moment's notice and be gone in 20 minutes, and their wife has no idea where they went or when they'll be back. Is that true still?
Yeah. For those super high alert level, like talk SEAL Team 6, it's not sustainable for very long, but as they rotate through, they maintain that readiness. But those teams, they're the top team on planet Earth.
Indeed. I wanted to ask you too, because you've been in the military for a long time and you've seen how it's been. And by the way, thank you for your service in Iraq. That had to be a horrific experience. And so many people went through that. And now we are in a place where we're not taking care of our veterans that went through that. And there were thousands upon thousands that went through that and came home. And we're not taking care of them. Why are we not taking care of our veterans? And the suicide rate is through the roof. And all. Why are we not doing that, do you think, as a country?
It's a multifactorial issue. And it comes with, when you experience things like that. I had a very hard time reintegrating back into society when I came back from Iraq. Just saw a lot of death and destruction. And I'll give you one story. So I'm in Iraq, and just on a daily basis, just seeing death and destruction and IEDs. I flew medevac. I did one air assault. And at the trauma facility, the Expeditionary Field Hospital in Balad, you've got a kid that comes in. He's 20, 21 years old, took an IED, both his legs are gone. And, just the level, he just wants to, the first question is my genitalia still there? The second question is, my buddy okay? And then you ask him, hey, what's your pain scale on 1 to 10? Your legs are blown off and you're probably going to die. It's a 4 or 5. Okay. 2 weeks later, I'm back in a civilian emergency department. And It's 2:00 in the morning, and we're running a pediatric code, and the baby dies, and it just rips our heart out. Me and the nurses were crying with the family, and I walk out and just get completely accosted by a mother and a 14-year-old son. He has an ingrown toenail. Literally, it's an ingrown toenail, and they're yelling, they're screaming at us. I'm like, hey, listen, I need a little bit of time. We just ran a code, and this baby died. And she said, I don't care. We were here first. And I absolutely snapped. I threw her out of the emergency department because his pain scale was like 15 out of 10. All right. And then you try to put in terms, okay, listen, 1 is it's really irritating, and 10 is you took an IED and it blew all your legs off and your buddy died. Okay. That's 10. It's like, oh yeah, it's definitely a 15. It really hurts. And it's just trying to get your mind wrapped around with just getting back with it. They don't know what you've been through. They've never really experienced anything like that. And it's just that, again, that perception is reality, but it's just really hard when you're working with these types of individuals to just come back and then deal with that and not want to just strangle everybody. So I think, a lot of combat veterans can probably appreciate that, but it took me several years. I actually moved to New Zealand and practiced medicine in Rotorua, New Zealand, and played soccer at Rotorua United, and then really, my wife Elsa and we got married down there in Rotorua, and then got back into the military. I was prior Army, so the current Air Force Reserves, but it took a while to make that transition. And for a lot of veterans coming home, it's just really hard. You can get into that battle mindset very easily because it's life or death. You want to live or die, but then you come back home and just trying to act like everything is normal. It's not normal. Like, you're not normal. You've seen too much stuff, and they really struggle with that. And if, there's great community resources, there needs to be more. Not all VA healthcare systems are created equal. We have a wonderful VA healthcare system here in North Carolina in Durham. And I worked there for about 6-7 years and was part of that and got to work with other veterans coming back. And that probably helped in my healing process too, because they respected that I had been there myself. But it's difficult, and you do see a lot of suicides. And it's really important to point out that everybody has a breaking point. Even if you're the hardest, toughest special operator Navy SEAL, they're the toughest people mentally and physically on planet Earth. They still have suicides in that population. So everybody has a breaking point. And the moral of that story is lean on that weight behind your spear. Make sure that's there. I mean, don't wait until you crack before you start reaching out to people, right? Your teachers, coaches, volunteers, coworkers, families. I mean, that's the best resource we have in this country. And so lean on that weight behind your spear when you're struggling. And I've been there myself, and it's a hard transition to come back.
And if you are by yourself and you feel all alone, there's a number I want you to call. It's 988. And hopefully that, because of the shutdown and stuff, hopefully that's still operational, because I think that's really important. 988 is an important number. If you're former military, hit the number 1 after that, and that will take you to somebody who can get you the help that you need, because you're important. We need people like you to be here, and you'll get through it. I promise you'll get through it. I think, Dr. Josh, that you would agree with me that if with given the proper support and the community that we can put together, that the guys can get through it, gals can get through it.
Yes. And then, you can always go to your local emergency department. I'm very proud to be that safety net for the community. There's always mental health resources. Sometimes it's difficult getting some of those resources, but we're always there. I'm always there for you. Go to your emergency department. There is a trained professional there for you 24/7. That's what I do. So, go to your local ER.
You are an extraordinary man. I got to tell you, and it's a privilege for me to meet you and to get to know you a little bit, because I drove a bus for 12 years before I was doing this. After I was doing this before, anyway. And what I learned during that was that we have a disconnect here, and I don't understand it. One time I was. Well, I got so many stories, but one time there was a lady who was, and you'll know this, Fifth and Pine in downtown Seattle. And it's one of the busier streets in downtown Seattle. And I looked up, the light was red, and I looked up, I was driving a bus, and I was about ready to make a turn, and I saw a lady trying to walk across the street. She had a white cane, and so she was blind. She had nobody with her, and so she started to, because I don't know if you know, but sometimes you can, when you're walking and you try and do this, everybody, walk with your eyes closed and try and walk in a straight line. It doesn't necessarily work very well. So she started walking towards the middle of the street. And the light was about ready to turn green for the oncoming traffic. So I put my brake on, opened the door, and went out and got her. Do you know the streets were full of people, Dr. Josh? Full of people. Nobody went. The only gentleman who went to help her as well was somebody who wasn't born here and didn't speak very good English. Other than that, nobody lifted a finger. Why are we? That doesn't make any sense to me. And so when we come back from this break, we're going to talk about his book again and his website and how you can donate to the nonprofit organization, because I think it is really an important aspect of what he does. So Dr. Josh McConkey is with us, and thank you so much for being who you are and to help all of us recognize and be a shining example and recognize how we can all get along and work together and maybe be, a little more kind. The strength of staying kind from your friends at Positive Talk Radio. Kindness is not weakness. It takes real strength to stay kind in a world that often rewards anger, ego, and control. Being kind means choosing to act from your values, not your wounds. It means showing grace even when no one's watching. But kindness doesn't mean being passive. It doesn't mean letting people take advantage of your time, your energy, or your peace. You can be kind and still say no. You have a soft heart with firm boundaries. The strongest people I know are the ones who choose compassion without losing themselves. They've been hurt. They've been tested. And still, they choose to love and lead and to lift others anyway. Kindness is not about pleasing everybody. It's about honoring who you are and how you treat others, even when it's hard. So stay kind, stay human, and stay strong. And always remember this, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. And welcome back to Positive Talk. I'd like to be joined at this moment by my friend, Brishelle. Would you like to join us, young lady? Uh-oh, you're muted.
I always get one microphone right and the other one not. But hello, everybody. Hello, Josh. It is so good to be here. I am so sorry I didn't catch the whole show, and I would look forward to doing that again with you. But thank you, Kevin, for allowing me to pop in through the end. And I loved the story you just shared about that old woman crossing the road. Every time you share that story, I'm like, yes. We need more people like that.
Well, and I've got so many stories. Another old lady got hit by a bus, and nobody moved on my bus, except for me. And it's just remarkable how disconnected we seem to be. And now, by the way, Brishelle is of that generation. She is 26, and I think that she would corroborate that there's a disconnect going on with kids that are younger and their resilience or their lack thereof, and they're not working as hard or working to achieve as much. Would you agree with that, Brishelle?
Slightly. I think it's the people who are the opposite of that stand out, and they're the example for the rest of us. You probably see that too, Josh, that it's almost harder because we want more. We want all the answers. We want to understand. We want there to be more than a 9 to 5. And we see the disconnect, which either makes some of us disconnect more, or that's when you see some of us that are like, hey, we need to be the difference of that. And when we see that, it is highly noticed. But I think kind of hard to say, but I think the broader of it is growing for the change to become more of a positive. I don't think we're there for each other, but I think we're starting to understand things a lot differently than the generation before.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Josh, you are that generation from before. I'm like a couple of generations removed from that. But it's interesting that, and by the way, Brachelle, he has 3 kids. They're all teenagers. They're all young teens. And Brachelle's taking it upon herself she is taking care of a 16-year-old who would be in a less than situation if it wasn't for her taking care of it. So there are some good people out there still working on it, but there aren't enough, are there?
We
Dr.
need more.
Josh.
Yeah, we need more for sure.
And be the tip of the spear. Wait a minute. That's not right. Brachelle, help.
I looked at it. I have everything pulled up. First, I want to say that, Josh, you've done so many things. The experience that you've had, I'm thankful to have you here on the show, to be talking with our audience. You've got knowledge from so many angles that a lot of us don't get to experience. But I believe it is weight behind the spear. Is that correct?
Yep, absolutely. Be the weight behind the spear. We can't all be the tip of the spear. I know some of those individuals. They're pretty cool, but we can't all do that. Believe me, I don't jump out of helicopters and airplanes. I take care of people.
Makes sense.
People jump out of helicopters and airplanes and stuff.
Oh boy, doing those types of things. Yeah.
Well, but you know something? I got to tell you, it is being an emergency physician. Thank God you're there. I've got to visit the emergency room several times and in my life, and having a good emergency room doc there is so important. Somebody to take care of us with compassion and caring and understand the human frailties that go on and how scared people are when they're in the emergency room.
Yeah, and that's something that you always have to keep in mind. Like, listen, everyone that's coming to see me is having their worst day. Now, you see a lot of people that just kind of abuse the emergency department for various different reasons, but the majority of people that are there, like they're having their worst nightmares coming true right now. And so just being able to be there and make a difference and calm them, let them know that you care. It's I've been doing this over 20 years, and it feels really good when you save a life, and it feels terrible when you can't. But everyone does their best for sure.
How do you deal with that?
For me, like the very first time that I encountered that, it was at Madigan Army Medical Center. So out there in Seattle, I was doing a rotation, and there was a SIDS death, the sudden infant death syndrome. And gosh, so that this gentleman just comes running up to the ambulance door and brings in like a limp baby, and everything just snaps into crisis mode, and we're putting in lines and intubating and all the medications. We ran this code for like over an hour, and the child did not survive. And the mother, who was active duty, like right towards the end, it comes running into the emergency department and just like, where's my baby? And then it all just kind of hit us because you're so focused. And then once we saw her just like collapse and cry, we all cried. It was horrific. I had a monster headache at the end of that shift. And that was just really the first time I encountered that type of just pain, and went home, and I just said, wow, I don't know if I can do this. This is horrific. And I actually said some prayers and went on a really, really long run, which I still do to this day. Is just the physical exertion. When you've seen a bunch of pain and trauma and you work with these families, I mean, you do your absolute best, but you can't save everybody. If you just go run for 7 miles until you throw up and you're just exhausted, it's kind of hard to be upset anymore. You're just so exhausted and tired. Like, okay, I'm just going to go to bed. I mean, that's really the only way to deal with it. Say your prayers. I have a very strong faith, and I know God's going to put me in positions to save as many people as I can. But unfortunately, I can't save everybody, and he has other plans there that I can't do anything about. But it's hard. I've been doing this for 20 some years, and it's just part of the job and something that you get used to, but it never gets easy when you walk in and talk to that family. Believe me.
Oh, I can't even imagine what it would be like to tell somebody that their loved one is no longer with us.
Mm.
Um,
And those are the things that motivate you every day, right? So when I would get out there and I start a nonprofit organization and some other things I've actually announced a run for lieutenant governor here in North Carolina, to just get involved at some policy levels and try to make a difference. So when you see stuff like that on a very daily basis, it motivates you.
Well, and I gotta tell you, I am number one. I'm so pleased to know you. And I teased at the halfway point that you've been interviewed and talked to some really, really cool people. Could you care to name drop a couple of that you've talked to and have interviewed and stuff?
I've done so many interviews. If you go on my IMDb profile, so there's like 130, 140 TV shows and podcasts and news stations. So yeah, I meet a lot of people, and then through the course of like just the last couple of years, I mean, team owners for the Cleveland Browns and Ross Perot Jr. All right, it was a big name there. So I've talked with and met a lot of different individuals. I get to run into politicians and it almost did an introduction for the president of the United States a couple of weeks ago, but that's a different story. That's a pretty crazy one. So it's busy and I enjoy what I do and I feel like I'm making a difference. So we're very motivated.
And
I want to these people and you meet them, you realize that they're just people too, right?
Oh, they're just people. They're just people that generally early on in their life they got famous for one reason or another. Whether they just wrote some famous songs or they had great skills or athletes. I've got a picture on my wall over there with me taking batting practice with Ken Griffey Jr. in 1999 at the Kingdom. That's where I had run into Dan Wilson as well. So I've got some great pictures, of the team, Edgar Martinez, Russ Davis, some of my sports heroes growing up. But I've been very blessed in life. I've just really met a lot of really cool people and just try to pay that forward.
Yeah. I would submit to you, young man, that you not only have enjoyed a great life, you've created a great life. There is a subtle difference between the two, in my opinion, because you can create something dynamic and awesome, but it takes work to do, and you have to have an attention to detail and really have a desire to make that happen. Congratulations on everything that you've done, and yet you're just a kid. You've got a long way to go.
Just a dude. Just a dude.
And before we go, we've just got a couple of minutes. I'd like you to tell our audience anything that you would like them to know.
That what you do every single day makes a difference. The people around you. You don't think it does. Family, coworkers, colleagues, friends, those things that you do, you have a significant impact on the people around you. So when you go out there and do positive things and volunteer and just be that weight behind the spear for something or someone that matters, everyone's got a different set of gifts. So your community needs you. We need you. So get out there, please.
Be the weight behind the spear. That's the name of the book. Go to his website, which is weightbehindthespear.com. And also you can donate to his nonprofit. How do they do that, Doctor?
If you go to weightbehindthespear.com/foundation. So it's a capital F, but weight, WEIGHT. So weightbehindthespear.com/foundation. You can learn more about what we do and donate it. I mean, every dollar helps. I appreciate it greatly.
And you're also helping the people of North Carolina who have suffered in some cases horribly.
That was the whole impetus of starting that organization, was during the floods, Hurricane Helene in September of last year, just biblical level destruction. And as a matter of fact, I reached out to the Seattle Mariners and I talked with Tim, somebody in communications, and had got a hold of Cal Raleigh and his dad, and I'm hoping they can do some things with us in the off season here, because Cal is from Western North Carolina. But we're doing a lot of great work, and for people out there, please, every little bit helps.
And he's affectionately known as the Big Dumper.
Yes. I bought a new jersey for the first time in boy, years and years. I mean, I've got Randy Johnson, Joey Cora, Jay Buhner, Ken Griffey Jr., Edgar Martinez, and Ichiro, and now I've got the Cal Raleigh. So he made the jersey collection.
That is awesome. Purcell, thank you so much for showing up, and Dr. Josh McConkey, and go to his website again, which Purcell is.
Yes, weightbehindthespear.com. If you'd like to donate as well, it is weightbehindthespear/foundations. And just a food for thought, maybe don't go get that Starbucks coffee. Donate to him instead and make a difference in our world.
Thank you.
Yeah, go spend $7 on him rather than. I can't believe coffee costs $7. Is that real?
That's the cheap one.
Go great. Well, we all have to work together and to give to each other, and he's got a great cause. And thank you so much for being here, young man. Will you come back sometime?
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
You have
Thanks,
yourself
Josh.
a wonderful day. Thank you for being part of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where stories inspire and voices remind us of what truly matters. May today's conversation give you hope, courage, and a reason to keep moving forward. And just remember, till next time, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got.